As you all know, I am a degenerate who enjoys debate broing, you know? I am an intense debate bro. And so therefore, I like to partake in a particular YouTube channel called Politically Provoked, wherein I state a variety of things. Oh, there I am in the comment section. And so I was watching this live stream between, it was on veganism, between Omni and Uber Soy. And Omni, he was the vegan. He had a very interesting proposal, which as I was watching the video, I became increasingly frustrated by, because it was just a profoundly bad argument. And to be clear, Houston is a vegan. I have no trouble. I have no beef with the vegans, right? If you will, beef with the vegans. That humor it didn't land. I heard, as soon as I said it, I was like, ooh, that didn't land. I know there's no, like, I wish there was a studio audience so there could be the palpable lack of something landing when I make a joke and it falls flat on its face. But because there's no studio audience, just like stare at me with cold hearts and just go, when I fail to land a joke, I feel like I should be the one to do so, you know? So anyway, so this is the basic idea. He seems to have been getting it from a different YouTuber named Ask Yourself. And so I just wanted to ask myself whether or not this is an absurd proposition.
Okay, so this is going to be one of those somewhat pedantic but helpful for those who need
We
it.
love
kinds of
pedantry.
videos. So as you guys all know, I use this dialogue process and argument that I call Name the Trait, and I like to have a video on my channel which explains this whole process, and I like that video to be up to date with the current model of Name the Trait that I'm using. So at this point, my last explanation video is a bit out of date. It's time to update it, and that's the purpose of this video today. So we're going to go through the Google Drive folder, which contains the dialog flow tree, the deduction tree, and the trait swapping animation. And I'll just give an explanation of how these things work. So let's start with the dialog flow tree. So here's the initial question that you can ask. On your current moral view, if all traits true of a given human who has moral value are switched to match those true of a given non-human animal who doesn't have moral value, is there any point in the trait equalization process where moral value is lost?
Oh, the absurdity. Oh, the absurdity of that question. Okay. So instead of just yet describing why that's so mind-bogglingly absurd of a question, I will myself provide an equivalent question. So he said, on your current moral view, if all traits true of a given human who has moral value are switched to match those true of a given non-human animal who doesn't have moral value, is there any point in the trait equalization process where moral value is lost? So here's my question. On your current moral view, if all traits true of a given voter who has voting rights are switched to match those true of a given chicken who doesn't have a right to vote, okay, is there any point in the trait equalization process where the right to vote is lost? Okay, we shall continue.
So let's just spend a minute on this. Firstly,
no, I already did. We don't need to spend a minute. I feel like I was going to give a better explanation.
Some kind of property that's like out there in some sense, then it can be that which is referred to.
No, he's making noises.
There is some set of truths about both of those objects. Now, just picture altering the truths of the first object to match the truths of this.
He keeps on making noises, and these noises are not
match the chair.
My noises.
One of the truths that will be altered
is
the truth that this is made of wood into the truth that this is made of iron. So again, very simple. Just take two objects, set up the list of truths about both of them, and then alter the list of truths about the first object until eventually it becomes the same as the list of truths about the second object. And then the only other thing I have to say here is that sometimes people will take a view that doesn't deny animals have moral value. It just tries to say they don't have sufficient value that it's wrong to do.
I don't deny that chickens have the right to vote. I just don't believe that they have the right to an equivalent amount of a vote as humans, and therefore, because they don't have a right to equivalent amount of a vote, given that we have limited voting capacity in the country, right? I just want to ensure that votes only stay in the hands of the humans, not because of any sort of fundamental difference. So you see where I'm going here, right? You recognize where I'm going. What I'm saying here is that he's putting the burden of proof, right? He's expecting that the impetus to prove that there is a difference lies with the person who is eating meat, right? But that's not true. It just as equally lies with him as the person who's arguing against eating meat, right? So the idea that the meat eater is the one who's responsible for showing that there is a difference, rather than him being responsible for showing that there is not a difference, is insanity. And this is something that Ask Yourself has done. Apparently, Ask Yourself, this is like what he does. He has 21,000 subscribers, which again, to be clear, is 21,000 more subscribers than I have, which is unfair. I do not support this. I should have his subscribers. We should have his subscribers. Houston and I, quibbles over Carvey, the empire, the conglomerate, right? The media, the next Fox News, if you will, right? We are basically, what's his name? Roger Ailes? I think it's Roger Ailes. Unless, I don't really know about the history. Do I really want to be Roger Ailes? I probably don't. Anyway, but the point is that, like, this is insanity, right? This is not coherent. It doesn't stand. You can't do this unless you have a reason to explain why the burden of proof has to be on the meat eater rather than on the vegan. And given that you're the one who's trying to frame the change to society, the way that society functions, I would argue, if anything, that realistically, not in terms of moral argumentation, but just realistically from the perspective of like what will actually be done, right? Because I'm not expecting a change, right? I am the meat eater. I don't expect to create a change. I'm not trying to make a change. I'm simply allowing the existing society to continue in the way that it's currently existing. If you expect a change, then moral impetus is on you, right? That's not an argument from a theoretical perspective, but from a practical perspective, that is certainly the case. That if you are the one who wants change, you are the one who has to make the argument for change. You can't expect other people to argue against change until you have made a proper argument for change, right? So you are the one who has to explain why chickens don't deserve voting rights, but nonetheless are worthy of bodily autonomy, right? This is up to you. It's up to you. Ask Yourself. It's up to you. Omni, destroyer of vegan cells. This guy right here. And I just find this whole thing to be absurd. And if there are any vegans other than Houston, I adore you. Houston is a fantabulous human being. A lot of vegans are not silly, okay, to be clear. Houston is not silly. But there are some that are just truly foolish. And I would argue that this Omni man, and I would argue that this Ask Yourself man are among these foolish fellows. And therefore, I would love the opportunity to debate them in the free marketplace of ideas. Au revoir. Until next time. Unless... No, yeah...